Hello guys, welcome back to Purgatory.
Purgatory.
And now that I think about it, that's kind of on topic. This is part one of a new series called Media Literacy is Dead, where we talk about how people now lack media literacy very much so, and what the consequences of that are going to be. I just finished watching Hazbin Hotel very recently, as some of you might have seen on my social medias where I don't know how to stop talking about the Italian mob boss Spider Twink, but needless to say, I loved it. Nothing is perfect and without criticism, but I absolutely adored it, and if you know anything about me, you would know that Angel Dust would be my favorite character. And then others, but that's not what this video is about. Real quick content warning. Clips from the show and talk of physical, verbal, and sexual abuse, rape, manipulation, drugging, BDSM/bondage, and sex work. Angel Dust is a character who, to my knowledge, went to hell because of his ties to the mafia via his family / his drug overdose, which he hints to in his fan and made canon music video, Addict. The important part, though, is his life in hell. Angel Dust is his pseudonym, as he is a porn star and overall sex worker. We see him dancing in clubs, filming porn videos, and often taking drugs and drinking as much as possible as a form of escapism. Angel Dust is actually the name of the drug that he takes, I believe, which would make sense as to why he would name himself that. He is under contract with an overlord named Valentino because Angel sold his soul to him for reasons we don't know yet but have theories of. Valentino is an absolute monster, and he sees Angel as a tool to be used, with no care for his feelings or emotions. He verbally abuses Angel. He physically beats him when upset. He demands that he films all night, that he films 16-hour days when he gets upset at him. He rapes him. He drugs him. He throws him around, treats him like a doll, and lets others do so as well. Valentino is the most hated character in the entire show, and it's not hard to see why. Especially when we get an entire music video of Angel singing and showing in graphic detail the extreme abuse that he goes through at the hands of Val, and this is only in one night. Episode 4 of Season 1 is where we go over his life and his story in general. The entire episode is about him. Even when other characters are on screen, it's about Angel. In this episode, we see Val screaming at Angel to come in immediately to film a video and intimidates Angel into coming in. Once he gets there, after a while of typical acting, one of the main characters, Charlie, comes in to try to convince Val to give Angel time off so that they have more time for other things. Angel tries to rush her out in clear fear because he knows how Val will react, how he will punish him, and how he might hurt Charlie. After Charlie destroys the set, Val takes Angel back to his dressing room and proceeds to seriously physically abuse him. Here, we find out that his real name is Anthony, and that he signed his soul away to Val. We learn in a later episode that the terms for the contract is that Val can do whatever he wants to Angel, make him do whatever he wants, but only in the porn studio. After this abuse, Charlie leaves once Angel yells at her to do so, as Val tells him to do, and we get his music video with the song Poison. The entire music video is him singing about what Valentino puts him through. The visuals are worse. They do not shy away from the abuse, and the point is to make you uncomfortable, to realize how bad this is. We see him being forced to film when it's clearly not consensual. We see him forced into bondage where he can't move or give a safe word after Valentino drugs him, which he seems to do constantly, and then he slips into a fantasy where he's filming a music video of him dancing and having a good time in order to cope. Meanwhile, we see what is really happening and flashes across the screen and glimpses in the background. This episode is the best episode, and this scene is the best scene in the entire show, in my opinion. It is an incredible stroke of genius, the way that we are shown a glimpse into his filming life, into what his life is in general, in his day-to-day, how Val treats him, how he has to live forever. We are shown how long he's been doing this by his sheer talent, in his dancing and his acting, how effortless it seems, how beautiful he moves. We see him put on and take off his mask constantly to show how non-consensual all of this is, how good he has had to become at faking consent just to get by. The small details and Angel saying that he only has himself to blame before grabbing the chain tied to him by Valentino, and then Val throwing him to the ground once he does so, only for Angel to put the mask immediately back on and gets up seductively because he knows his sexual actions will be the ones that are accepted. Most fascinating to me is how in some scenes in the show, the sex between Val and Angel actually seems somewhat consensual, such as this scene where he throws himself into Val's arms and seems okay for the moment, and the moment after where they're having sex and all of Angel's limbs are wrapped around him, his eyes are closed, he's keeping their lips together, he seems to be clinging to Val, until he bites Angel. Showing how deep abusive relationships can be, how it's not always being thrown around or abused, but how you're given moments of what seem to be care, of gentleness, moments where you feel cared for. It becomes a drug itself. They deprive you of any praise, of any kindness, so that when they give it to you, this less than bare minimum feels like the entire world, because you are starved for love and care. He's carelessly thrown around in bondage and used like a toy after being drugged, and this is where he puts himself into his fantasy in order to escape. In his own words, in this scene, they show Angel dancing and enjoying what he's doing because it's all in his head. And then they show in the background on the monitors that he's actually being abused while this is happening. Insane! They show Angel break character even in his fantasy for a second when the pain gets to be too much and he falls to the ground. And then they factor in what is happening in real life into the dance moves. Where in real life he's banging on the ground because he's in pain, he's banging his fist on the ground as a part of the dance. And when he gathers himself in his fantasy, he's singing a high note in the music video when he's actually screaming in real life. Then Val swoops in and takes him out of his fantasy. After this, we are shown the heartbreaking scene of after shooting where Angel goes back to his dressing room and allows himself, for the first time this episode, and that we've seen him, to break down and be vulnerable. While the rest of the song is upbeat and active for how sad it is, the end doesn't let you escape the point of the song. This is a beautiful piece of art that shows Angel's abuse, in my opinion, perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. I have not a single complaint. This is the best scene of anything ever. And yes, I am a sexual assault survivor. Some people, however, did not agree and thought that this was actually glamorizing and romanticizing abuse. Some people found this thought absolutely ridiculous and definitely showed it what they had to say, but I actually don't agree with this approach. I see how people could see it as glamorization. With such a heavy topic such as rape, sexual assault, and abuse, you want it to be handled as a serious situation that it is. When you see it put into an upbeat pop song that absolutely slaps, and where in the video there is dancing and smiling and showing a party life of drugs, sex, and alcohol, it can feel off or wrong. However, I think this is where the death of media literacy began in this situation. They clearly show the forceful mask Angel makes himself put on, and they show how miserable he is before he does. We see how miserable he is the entire time. He's singing about how his abuser is poisoning him and how it's going to be the death of him. He is raped and abused on screen. I think the biggest issue just may have been in the end where Angel is dancing that choreography where we see glimpses of his assault. At first glance, this could absolutely be seen as inappropriate and glamorizing or sexualizing it even. I think these people just failed to understand the media literacy of the scene. The point was to show how this is him coping with his abuse. That's why we got the scene after he says the words, "I disassociate, disappear," and why we get shots of his abuse during the dance, because that is happening currently. When that transition happened between the bondage scene and the music video scene, that was just him going into his fantasy world. There was no actual transition. This is why he falls in the music video at the same time he falls in the abusive scene. We were supposed to see that this is how he is forced to cope while being raped, because if he doesn't, it will be the death of him. I actually completely understand the lack of understanding here. I just think that instead of maybe dismissing the entire show, episode, creator, character because of it, we tried to analyze it first, question our media literacy. Eventually, a bunch of people seemed to understand and ended up changing their mind on the scene and episode, though of course some did not. However, this is where the actual issue arises. Angel Dust's birthday is on April 1st, which I think it is so mean to make his birthday April Fool's, but April is also Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and I wonder if they did that on purpose. Anyways, the night before April 1st, the Hazbin Hotel Twitter account teased something in order to celebrate his birthday. That night, they dropped a Poison remix. As everyone else, I was beside myself with excitement and giddiness. His character means more to me than possibly any character in fictional media. I see myself in him. I see what I could be. I see our similarities in both good and bad ways. He makes me feel better about myself sometimes, and sometimes worse. So I was just overall excited for this. However, when I listened to it, I was promptly, immediately, and tremendously horrified. The remix was done with the help of The Living Tombstone, known for their FNAF songs and their very upbeat music. The difference between the original Poison and the remix is dubstep. And Valentino's voice being featured in it. The point of Poison was to show us how deplorable, how horrendous, how significant, how deep, how astoundingly awful his abuse is. How unhappy and ruined he is, his life is, how he is hopeless and majorly traumatized. And I'm sorry, but I don't think that adding dubstep to hype up the song to the point where it sounds like the early 2000s club music, and adding sexual lines from his abuser to him in the song where he's being raped, drugged, and assaulted, and talking about how miserable he is appropriate. To celebrate his birthday, they made a remix of the song about his abuse and rape, and then put his rapist on the track, and only the times where he's saying something sexual and disturbing, and then put early 2000s dubstep club music behind it. The remix is a song that you dance to and don't listen to the lyrics. That is the opposite of the entire point of the song. At first, I decided to give them the benefit of the doubt, which I never do, and I thought that maybe that was the point. That they're adding the abuser's comments into the song to show how demented the situation is, how absolutely fucked up it is. But they made it dubstep. And the comments that Val were making were all sexual, to the point where people were literally thirsting for him in the comments. And when there are much worse things that he said to him. Also, I don't even see why it would be necessary to make this anyway, even if the point was to worsen it. It's just astounding to me that they phrase this as a way to celebrate his birthday. I don't see how that isn't an awful thing to do. And the second worst part to me is, this is where the lack of media literacy comes to a head. Back when the original Poison came out, people were outraged and very upset at the idea that they would glamorize abuse, only to come to realize that that wasn't what they were doing. Now, in the time where that is actually the case, and their feelings would be justified, it's silent. It truly is just an example of how media literacy is truly dead. Now, I could understand it initially because we were running off the high of new content. The show just came out after being in the works for years upon years, and we're already getting new content. And have one of the most favorite characters. But it's been a while, and I just don't see how no one's seeing the red flags. And yes, of course he's fictional, but that's the thing. I'm not defending him or his feelings because he doesn't exist, but other people do. Content is made for humans to make them feel. A lot of SA survivors, trafficking survivors, abuse survivors, addicts, and more can relate to him and feel seen because of him, and sometimes even heal because of his character. This is why art is so incredibly important to the human race. It keeps us alive, it keeps us thriving, and it keeps us thinking. And not everyone who likes him or is a survivor will agree with me, whether because they don't feel this way or because they just don't see how messed up it is, but there are people out there who do. Including me. Hi, yes, remember, I am a survivor and someone who also relates to him. Hello. What really strikes me is that if you really wanted to do a remix of Poison, because like almost everyone loves it, it was literally #2 on the Billboard, bubbling under Hot 100, and especially on his birthday, considering everything his character has gotten, all of the attention and love and rewards. Why wouldn't you remix Poison with the already existing Angel Dust music video where the lyrics and the music video literally correspond and correlate with one another? People have lost their minds over Addict for years now. It was the OG Poison in a way, and it gave us a glimpse into the future where we would get Poison. What with the dancing scenes and the mask Angel has to put on, the flashes to him breaking down in a sketchy hotel with his best friend Cherry, his throwing things and breaking down even more after a scene of him getting assaulted by Valentino. Addict also already had dubstep in it. And I don't like it, don't get me wrong, but the thing is, in Addict, it felt acceptable. This is an example of when dubstep is appropriate in a song like this. The dubstep comes on in scenes where they are literally dancing, they're in a club, stripping, or celebrating. And then it goes right back into the seriousness in a way that fits. Before the last scene that fades into a calmer, slower music that Angel gets very vulnerable to, and we see him getting raped by Valentino in a flashback. Addict was literally right there. The lyrics literally correspond to Poison. It was like Poison Part 1, and instead of celebrating his birthday by finally tying them together and giving us something worth celebrating, that would make us feel, that would drive the point home, that would hit way harder, they added dubstep and the abuser's vocals to the track. I genuinely don't understand this decision, and why it was not only made, but thought of to be a good idea in the first place. But it appears that the creator, Vivian Madrano, doesn't have a great track record with things like this. I want to clarify that I am very new to the situation, and I don't think I've seen any solid proof for anything, mostly word of mouth. But it seems that she doesn't have a great track record when it comes to sensitivity. And there's been a debate for a while about if she really can write good female characters or write them well. Some people are reasonably upset that Charlie is supposed to be the main character, and yet the men get the most screen time, and everyone loves Angel Dust, despite Charlie being the main one of them all. And while Angel Dust means the world to me, and I want absolutely nothing to happen to him, and I want as much screen time of him as possible, I do have to admit Charlie's treatment is definitely different than Angel's, both by the writers of the show and the fans. Now, I am not educated enough on the topic to talk about this, and that's a topic for another video anyway, but the point is that it seems that Vivian had some issues to begin with. I was just shocked that the remix came from the same creators of Poison. I thought that they understood. I want to clarify that this is a discussion and a conversation to be had, and that there is no vitriol being thrown or spit here. But once again, art is created to make people feel something. And when you write a story about a sexually, physically, mentally, and emotionally abused person, make a beautiful song and video explaining it, representing those abused, and then remix it with the abuser's sexual comments mixed in, and a club beat in order to celebrate said character's birthday. It's just not being handled with the seriousness that the situation needs and deserves, that the people who see it and will be affected by it in whatever way deserve. Overall, this situation just seems like a good example of the death of media literacy, and I thought it would be a good conversation to be had, because I will admit it did upset me a little bit. Again, this is very fresh and I'm very new, so anything that I say as fact is definitely up for correction and criticism. But I think that my point still stands and makes sense. Even if it doesn't affect you personally, I think the situation was just a bad one, and just confusing. If you guys have any thoughts on the matter or anything to add, I am interested in what you guys have to say. Though, of course, if you aren't a victim of SA/abuse, don't speak for those who are, if you're going to still give your opinion. I hope that Val dies or something in season 2, and that Angel gets his soul back, or the contract gets destroyed overall. I just wish the best for him, because I love him and I hate abusers. I am a bit worried in where we're going with the show, as in what direction we're going, and with the sinners like getting better and going to heaven, but that's a different discussion. Anyways, make sure not to be a dick and to keep an open mind about things that you don't understand or necessarily agree with, so that instead of being stubborn, we can actually learn something and become smarter. Maybe smart enough to develop media literacy. If you guys made it all the way here, thank you so much for watching, as this video is important to me. However, it's being filmed right before the day that it should be posted. If I sound a little off, it's because I just got over being sick. I think this might be my last day. I hope, I pray, I beg. But anyway, if you liked the video, press the like button. If you hated the video, press the like button, because the dislike button doesn't exist. Oh, and for the emojis, I totally forgot the emojis. Put an angel emoji, and the fire emoji, and the spider emoji, because it's about angel dust. It's very important. I will be looking for those emojis, because this time I actually care about it. But do remember to be a good person and not a bad one, obviously, because it is one rule of this kingdom, the one law of this kingdom. It's truly not that hard. And also remember that I will not see you, but you will see me next time, again, because of course, that's how videos work. I didn't do it as long this time. Bye, guys.